enjoying this last warm snap. It seems like every night right about now I get stopped up and I can't breathe through my nose. So if I have to stop and just breathe a minute, just go ahead and take you a break too while we're working through the text here. It's been a miserable week or so, just trying to breathe at night. All right, we are in chapter 21 of 2 Samuel. We're going to be wrapping this book up before long. There's only 24 chapters, and even with this chapter, we kind of see the author is moving towards wrapping it up. Even our accounts that we have tonight seem to be disjoined from the events of chapter 20, the preceding events. It seems as if, I'm riding along, I need to tie some things up, and you know what, I forgot, let me put this story in here, and then we're going to wrap some things up, and that's kind of where we're at right here. We're getting into that part of the book. So we get into chapter 21, and just this first verse. There's a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year, and David sought the face of the Lord, and the Lord said, "There's blood guilt on Saul and on his house because he put the Gibeonites to death." Now, right away, just notice in this verse, there's no connective tissue here. There's nothing that connects it to what preceded. All the business with Absalom, David has just been put back on the throne. We've got trouble between Israel and Judah. There's tension going on, right? And we just moving away. Just, all right. I said all I'm going to say about that. Now we're going to talk about something else. That sort of seems what the author is up to. So we've got a famine. It's been 3 years, year after year. We've just got 3 consecutive years of famine. We didn't have a year of famine, then a year of plenty, and then a year of famine. It was three consecutive years of famine. David sought the Lord. Typically, that's just kind of how they understood it. If the land is going through a drought, if the land's going through some sort of hardship, there's something going on. We've offended God somehow, and we need to find out what it is. And that's the natural course. And so here it is. And really, it kind of makes you step back and wonder, why did it take 3 years? But we're not given that answer, but we do see that there's blood guilt on Saul and his house because he put the Gibeonites to death. We don't know much about that yet. But in verse 2, we'll learn a little bit. The king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. And now the Gibeonites were not of the people of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. Although the people of Israel had sworn to spare them, Saul had sought to strike them down in his zeal for the people of Israel and Judah. The Gibeonites, if you remember, it's been a minute since we were in Judges, but we studied Judges before coming into 1 Samuel. The Gibeonites were a people that, they used a little bit of deceitfulness to trick Joshua. If you remember, there were people that lived within the land of Israel, but they put on dusty clothes and dirty clothes, and they presented themselves to Joshua as a people who had traveled a long distance. And they made a deal with Joshua. Joshua was going to let them live. He's going to let them live among them. They're going to take them and use them for servant or slave labor, that kind of thing. They're going to live there in peace. Joshua and the children of Israel, they're not going to annihilate them. Well, it turns out, that Gibeon is just a few miles north of Jerusalem, and they tricked Joshua, but Joshua made them a deal, and they stayed with it. But then when Saul became king, there's no account of this in Scripture other than what we're reading right here. When Saul became king and his zeal to cleanse Israel of adversaries and things like that, evidently, he went after the Gibeonites. Now, he didn't annihilate them, but he did kill a lot of them. And so we have blood guilt. Saul broke the truce Joshua had made with the Gibeonites, and now, they're suffering a 3-year drought. So David is going to find out. He went to seek the face of the Lord, found out about this thing that Saul has done, and now David has gone to the Gibeonites to see how to make this right. So in verse 3, David said to the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you, and how shall I make atonement that you may bless the heritage of the Lord?" The The Gibeonites said to him, "It's not a matter of silver or gold between us and Saul or his house, and neither is it for us to put any man to death in Israel." And so, it's like, what can we do? You're offering something, but we don't really know how to proceed from here. Really, David says again, "What do you say that I shall do for you?" What can we do to make this right? They said to the king, "The man who consumed us and planned to destroy us so that we should have no place in all the territory of Israel, let 7 of his sons be given to us so that we may hang them before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the chosen of the Lord." And the king said, "I will give them." All right, so they're saying seven sons. We need offspring of Saul. Now, up till here, the only offspring of Saul that's been talked about as being left is Mephibosheth, his grandson, Jonathan's son. And so David is going to show us that there are still some descendants of Saul that remain. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Saul's son Jonathan, because of the oath that the Lord was between them. Because of the oath of the Lord that was between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. The king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, whom she bore to Saul, Armoni and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Merab, the daughter of Saul, whom she bore to Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Maholathite. We got 2 Mephibosheths, just one's a grandson, one's a son. All right, so Mephibosheth that we're familiar with, son of Jonathan, I guess he could be the namesake for one of his uncles if they were doing such a thing. It's entirely possible. He gave them to the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the mountain before the Lord, and the 7 of them perished together. And they were put to death in the first days of harvest at the beginning of the barley harvest. So, almost as quickly as it started, it's coming to an end. Now, we're just a generation away. These are sons of Saul. And it seems pretty harsh to go pull them out of their households and have them executed for the sake of the work or something that their father did. Pretty difficult things to wrap our minds around at sometimes. But nevertheless, that's exactly what's happening here. So, on the map, Gibeon is just a few miles northwest of Jerusalem. It's not that far at all. I can't remember if it's something like 5 miles or 15. It's not far. I don't think it was much more than 5. But nevertheless, it's nearby, and David made it happen pretty quick like. And so the Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took a sackcloth and spread it for herself on a rock from the beginning of harvest until rain fell upon them from the heavens, ending of the drought. Right? She did not allow the birds of the air to come upon them by day or the beasts of the field by night. She's protecting the bodies and the bones in particular. There was still in Israel, there's a lot of the way they understood the afterlife, quite a bit different from how we do, but they believed that the bones of the relatives are still were part of their lives in a way. And so to treat the remains with honor and respect was tantamount to showing that loved one honor and respect. And then there's more superstition in there than that, but that's the gist of it. And so she's guarding the bodies. She's making sure that animals, birds don't chew on them, right? David was told what Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done. And David went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of his son Jonathan from the men at Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the public square of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hanged them on the day the Philistines killed Saul on Gilboa. So we're rehashing a little bit of history. Saul was killed by the Philistines on the side of Mount Gilboa. The Philistines took his body, and the Jonathan's. They hung them on the wall there at Bet Shan. It's in the Jordan River Valley on the edge of it. The men of Jabesh Gilead snuck in, stole the bodies off the wall, carried them back, and buried them, showing them honor, right? And so David goes and gathers their bones that were still at Jabesh Gilead and carries them back to Rizpah, right? He brought them up from there, the bones of Saul and the bones of his son Jonathan. And they gathered the bones of those who were hanged, and they buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in the land of Benjamin in Zelah, in the tomb of Kish his father. And they did all that the king commanded, and after that God responded to the plea for the land. And so once the 7 sons are hung, but not only that, Saul and Jonathan's remains brought back and buried properly in the tomb of his father. Then God relented and ends the drought, right? God responded to the plea for the land. And so the thing that Rizpah did was honorable, right? And David saw that, and he's like, oh yeah, we need to take care of them. And that's exactly what he does. So the drought is lifted, and immediately a new account. Just like the previous account here with the men of Gibeah was disjoined from the narrative of David getting back on the throne and trouble between Judah and Israel. Well, now we're just jumping to another one, and it's war with Philistines. Something completely disjoined. Now there was a war again between the Philistines and Israel, and David went down together with his servants, and they fought against the Philistines. And David grew weary. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of the giants, whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, and who was armed with a new sword, thought to kill David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and attacked the Philistine and killed him. And then David's men swore to him, you shall no longer go out with us, lest you quench the lamp of Israel. Well, so we like giants are interesting, right? Talk about the Nephilim. They're interesting folks to study. We have the Philistines are back in the picture. It's been a while since we've talked about the Philistines, and I guess of all of Israel's ancient foes, the Philistines are one of my favorite. They're that thorn that is in the flesh of Israel. And when Israel needs corrected, the Philistines are usually the ones that come in and cause them problems, right? It's the Philistines that are sometimes used by God to enact a little bit of correction, right? Discipline of the Lord, perhaps. The Philistines remain. We have a giant, a descendant of the giants, whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze. Somebody tell me how much that is in pounds, because I don't deal in shekels too often. Shekels of bronze. How much weight we're talking about here? Somebody's got that in their notes. 7.5 pounds. 7.5 pounds. It's a pretty heavy spearhead by all means, weights and measures. And a new sword. We really don't know what to make of that. The Hebrew is a little fuzzy right there. It could be new sword. He went down to the Dollar General on the corner of Gath Street and Nob and got him a new sword. Or it could mean that he's just taken this sword off somebody in battle. It could be that. He saw that David is weary. We're assuming, aged now. So we're thinking that most of these accounts are delivered chronologically. We're moving closer to the end of David's life, and David has now got to a point where being a man of war is not a great career choice anymore for him. Abishai, Joab's brother, came to his aid, attacked this descendant of the giant, killed him. And it's at that point where it's really a nice way of saying it. David's men swore to him, you shall no longer go out with us to battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel. You're the king. You're the chosen of God, right? You can't die out here on the battlefield. You're too important to the nation. You need to stay. It was a polite way of saying you're in the way at this point. You're not as useful in battle as you once were. You need to stay out of the way and let us do our thing. Very, very, very honorable way of wording this, right? After this, there was again war with the Philistines at Gob. And Sibbecai the Hushathite struck down Saph, who was one of the descendants of the giants. There's a descendant number 2. And there was again war with the Philistines at Gob, and Elhanan, the son of Jehoiakim the Bethlehemite, struck down Goliath the Gittite. The shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. There's three descendants of giants here. We got big guys coming through right now, and it seems to be more of the focal point of the text, right? Each little battles are popping up, and each of them has a descendant of the giant. This Goliath is Goliath the Gittite, not Goliath of Gath. However, we're going to see that they are descendants from the giants of Gath. There was again war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature. He had 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. He also was descended from the giants. So we got 6-fingered, 6-toed guy, 12 each, 24 in total. This guy, his nickname was Digits. That's what his buddies called him. All right, so we have an account of 4 descendants of giants, of the Philistines, fighting with David and his army, fighting against Israel. Verse 21, and when he taunted Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimei, David's brother, struck him down. Now, these 4 were descended from the giants in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. So the question is, why these 5 verses? Why did we need to know that 4 descendants of the giants, of the Philistines, were killed? It's not just a history for the sake of history. This is theological. It's meaningful for our understanding of how God is operating in the text and in his people. Why did we need to know that these giants are dealt with? I'm going to get something to drink while y'all meditate on that. I was hoping I would. No, I'm not. Any ideas? The last one we were familiar with, I believe, was Goliath of Gath, right? David as a young shepherd boy, it's sort of the beginning of his military career. Here we are, David has gotten older. His soldiers are saying, you need to, you should probably rule from back there somewhere and not here at the battlefield, lest the lamp of Israel, we have a front end and we have a back end to David's warring for his, not the best way of saying it, for his career as a battle-hardened veteran is started with a giant, kind of coming to a close with giants. It's poetic, if you will. All right, a little bit of geography. We have Jerusalem off over here towards kind of the eastern side of the land anyway. Gath is over in the coastal plain area. It's kind of the last of the cities of the Philistines. You have the 5 capitals of the Philistines. Gath is on the most inland. Gath and just north, I didn't highlight it, is Ekron, and those 2 are in. The rest of them are on the coastline, such as Gaza, like you're hearing so much talk about in the news right now. And then you have Gob, Gezer up there. It's the same city. A lot of these ancient Israelite cities have multiple names, but Gob and Gezer is the same city. So you get an idea about where they're fighting. We're pushing Philistines back, and there's always this give and take around that border line right there between Israel and the Philistines, fighting over cities along the edge there. never truly, pushing the Philistines out. And that is chapter 21. It's rather straightforward. We're seeing a fragmented text. We're seeing the author working towards his conclusion. This next chapter, 22, is a chapter of poetry. This is David's song of deliverance, and it's about the battles that he's fought. And so it is an entire chapter, and even goes into, there's some poetry in chapter 23, just the last words of David. And so we're wrapping it up. We're going to, up until now, we haven't seen the poetic side of David in the narrative of 1st or 2nd Samuel. We're going to see it here. I'm not going to teach through the poetry. We'll read it, and the things that we need to kind of slow down and talk about, we will, but I'm not equipped to teach Hebrew poetry. It's not one of my strong suits. It's beautiful. It sounds really good, especially if you know Hebrew and can read the Hebrew. The rhyme, the meter sounds really good. Even just reading it in English is kind of clunky, and so it's tough. But we'll kind of work through it. But you have any thoughts or questions about chapter 21? We just kind of covered a couple things, and it's again just the author sort of piecing together his conclusion for the book. All right. Well, the commercial in for Sunday night Bible class, our study of heaven, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be very interesting as we piece together Garden of Eden with New Jerusalem and show the parallels and kind of work through the text. It's going to be really, really interesting. We are going to plan on doing our fall festival here on November the 4th. It's not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday. It'll be about 5 o'clock in the evening, and so we're going to start getting that announced as quickly as we can. Of course, Sunday, I know it's a short notice, but if we don't do it quickly, well, it's not going to happen until December. So we're going to have to we'll try to make it work, do the best we can. All right.